Hello, everybody. Welcome to SEMA 2025, the refinish and repair stage. My name is Jason Black. I am with iCar, and here with me today is Ryan Brown. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Hello, Ryan.
Thank you very much for having me. So my name is Ryan Brown. I am the technical manager for AkzoNobel. I cover all of North America. I'm kind of based out west, but I want to encompass the whole thing. So I do a lot with our training department and a lot of the training that we do and the emphasis on how do we make our industry better. And so that's what I spend a lot of time, my day-to-day doing. So kind of what we want to talk about today is, if we look at shops, we know that everyone's down a little bit this year, right? Things have gotten a little bit slower. And it's really easy to sit back and just simply say, woe is me, what should we be doing this time? But the emphasis really needs to be on, if I've got some time and I have that time now, what can I do? What steps can I take to make myself better? And also when things do pick back up, my shop is now more efficient and runs more effectively with that effort that I put in there. So we wanted to kind of cover a couple things about training and really how it ties into our industry. So
Yeah, I mean, all the industry, what we're about making the best use of our time, right? So like you say, when you're slow, because a lot of times you don't have time to train when everything is real busy. So you're right, when you slow, that's one of the best ways to make use of that time is to get trained. And like you say, when you get more training, then when you do pick up, you're more efficient. I agree with you.
And to your point, I think when shops are really busy, it does hide some inefficiencies in our processes because there's always something else to do. So no matter what, we can keep moving forward and something's getting done. So kind of what we want to look at is, why training matters, right? And if we go to the core of it, a couple of points here, right? So we really want to have expert technicians. Car complexity keeps getting higher, and so we really want to make sure that we're an expert at what we do and take it seriously. It also improves our shop efficiency. The quicker we can get a car in and out of the repair process, the quicker we can get it through. That helps all of our KPIs. It's always really the end goal is to make sure we're as efficient as possible in that repair process. When we start getting slow, I remember back when I was painting, if we had a slow day and you gave me one bumper to paint, I could figure out a way to make it take 6 hours, right? Just because that's all you had to do. We also want to promote safety and compliance and making sure we're doing repairs in a safe manner, we're staying safe, and we're doing all the right things within the shop. Same with that, it's also, anytime we can foster an environment for continuous improvement, we also boost employee morale. We are more proud of the job that we do, and we've actually seen a ton of studies done to where it actually helps employee engagement and also keeping them on the job and keeping them within the workplace.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I personally, when I was refinishing in a shop, I enjoyed the training because there's always new products. Even if it was just product training, not necessarily the application, which that's all great too, but there's always new products coming out. There's always new procedures. And the old saying, people would come to us, the body guys, oh, it's just paint. What you're doing is just making it look good. That's not the case anymore. So we need training not only to make the cars look good, because we still have to do that, but also we're a part of the safety now with stuff like ADAS and things like that. So we need to be trained more now than we ever have before.
Yeah, and I think it's a real culture shift within the refinish side of it is that, to your point, we do play a part in the safety of the vehicle and how it goes back on the road, where years ago it was really more of a cosmetic procedure. And so as cars evolve and safety systems evolve, and we're going to talk about that more, it has really become a critical piece of the refinish process. So look at a couple of statistics. On average, a lot of collision repair technicians only receive about 10 hours of training per year.
That's not much. That's not good.
And when you consider the complexity of all the vehicles now, that's a really, really low number. And if you start looking at other industries, that's really, really low compared to most other industries.
And that's not just refinishing. You're saying that's 10 hours, period.
Yes.
Oh, that's way too low.
Yep. Now, there are other people, it's less than 10% of shops provide 40 to 60 hours of training. So that's a really low percentage of shops that really take it seriously. And kudos to them, and you can usually tell when you go into the shops that do put an emphasis on it, they tend to run more efficient. They don't have a lot of employee turnover, and you can really tell the difference on how they approach doing repairs on cars.
Absolutely. I mean, a shop that is doing that kind of training is 100% going to be more efficient than people that are not training and keeping up with the times for their technicians.
Yeah. So another interesting thing is that if you look at all the different, domestic, European, and Asian car manufacturers, and we kind of just average them out, they recommend anywhere between 16 and 76 hours of annual training is what they kind of recommend for technicians. And so you can see that 10 hours is really below all of those limits there.
And I would like to see it closer to the 76 than the 16.
Absolutely. Right, and with that, we also want to make sure the training we do is structured. There's a purpose behind it, and it doesn't have to necessarily be just going to a training facility and doing a paint maker certification. It can be tons of different things we can do from everyone in the shop, from the lowest of the low levels to the highest of the high levels, right? So what we kind of discuss is like, what are 3 good opportunities that we see that are kind of the easiest targets for things that we need to improve upon? There can be a whole list of them, and every technician that shop will be in a different path, part of their path in their journey. So, ideally you want to work with them and figure out what do they need the most to do their job better. But we kind of wanted to highlight 3 big areas here that are pretty much good bang for the buck that every shop could do a little bit better at times. All right, so we want to talk about radar ADAS requirements. We kind of touched on that earlier, but is the safety of the vehicle going back on the road is now in our hands. We need to make sure we understand what those processes are and what we need to do. And a lot of it removes the fear behind doing something different, right? So it's also important.
And a lot with that is making sure that the refinish technicians know how to look up OEM information. And in the past, that's been something, with your painter, it's, I need to look up the paint code. I need to look up the variances. I need to do this. I need to do that. We're in a world today where the refinish technician needs to be able to look up that OEM procedure and needs to truly understand that that's a must-do. That's not an option anymore.
100% correct.
And I'm going to put a little bit of a plug there for RTS. We kind of help, if you don't know how to go through and navigate the different OEM information, our site helps on that. So if you're, we don't give you the OEM information, but we give you ways. Now, of course, we do, like if they do put out a statement, something like that. But we help you navigate through the different OEMs, so that may be a help. But that's part of the training too, is to make sure that the refinish technicians mentally know what they're doing.
Absolutely, and there's 2 ways you look at it, right? We need to make sure we're pulling OE procedures and know how to repair that specific car, but there's a ton of good information available on just how radar ADAS systems work, why we have to do the things that we do, and once you have a deeper understanding of the why behind it, it makes the processes a little bit easier to kind of comprehend as you go through and each manufacturer and see how they want to approach them. Another really good one is just color process, right? And this is kind of our tag we use to describe just the process I have in the shop to get the color of the car correct as early on in the repair as possible. And this is probably near and dear to my heart because I remember when I was a technician, I was not the greatest at this for a good period of time when I was younger. And once the rep that I had kind of convinced me to do it, it made an absolute world of difference on my productivity, my stress level, and just how I approached the repair, because I spent my time in the spray booth focusing on what was the best procedure to get the car refinished properly. And it wasn't stressing about, do I have the right color and what am I going to do here? I wasn't making spray outs in a spray booth with the car in there, taped up.
And that kills your production. The number one slowdown in an efficient paint shop is your spray booth. And I know we have different clears that help with that and a lot of technology in the spray booth, but still, that is your funnel point, and there's no way you should be trying to match a color while it's in the booth. It's just going to allow everything to stack up behind you.
Absolutely. And anytime you look at someone when they have to make like a color adjustment, the farther and farther they get behind, the more stress they're under, they tend to make poor choices. We want to see the color move really quickly. We'll pick something that probably really shouldn't pick, and we just want to see it move and try and make it go.
Oh, it'll blend.
Exactly. And then, just a different thing on just different refinish application procedures. You touched on it earlier, a lot of new colors. Just making sure, even if you haven't seen the car come in yet, you can bet you probably will at some point. So just make sure you kind of understand that stuff. So radar ADAS stuff, we're not going to get too in-depth with it, but just to kind of touch on some of the pieces of it. OEM procedures are really the priority over anyone else's recommendations, although everyone does provide some good guidelines and some different things. But there's some absolutes that always go into there too. A basic thing some people don't know is there's no body filler or any kind of filler application or plastic welding in your radar repair zone. You can't blend any base coat or clear coat within the zones. So it does affect the way I do the repair, and that's one of the things. If you can do a little bit of research in your free time, you'll start to see some commonalities between every manufacturer, and you can start changing the way you refinish cars or the way you go through blueprinting, because you can see, okay, I'm going to have a blend in this area here. We need to change how we're writing this estimate. So that stuff comes in very handy. And you can see here, there's kind of an example. Everyone has their own procedures. It's just making sure you're aware of them. And it's something you can do if you have some extra time. It's just take the time, do the research. Almost every paint manufacturer has resources to help out with that. iCar has resources. It doesn't have to be that daunting, but if you have some free time, make sure you're spending that effort to look it up and get familiar with them. Like I said, this is near and dear to my heart. It's so common that we see colors being matched in the spray booth while the car's in there taped up when it should be in the refinish process. Making sure we can verify the color as early on in the process is the most important thing. You have to take the time to do it irregardless. You really want to do it as early on as possible. What happens if you have like a special effect toner or something you have to order you don't have in stock, or maybe there's a different procedure for it, or maybe need some extra blend room, or any of those cases there. The earlier on we can get it verified, the better and easier that repair process goes.
And the quicker you get that car out.
Exactly. We really want to see the paint shop operate kind of like more of a manufacturing facility as far as like how it moves through your stages. And you can break the repair down, and if you get all that stuff done, it really helps to kind of have a clear plan. And if you focuses on how to best repair that car while it's in the spray booth and not on the color, it makes it a lot easier. We tend to not miss little things. We can make the most of our time, and it does speed through production drastically. And it's one of those things too, right? We're a little bit slower, we have some extra time to do it, but what happens when you get busier again, right? When you put these processes in place early, they last when you do get busier, and it makes it a lot more efficient in the shop.
Well, many times slower is faster, right?
Exactly.
Especially with us. I know in our industry on the refinish side, and when I was teaching at school, I used to teach VOTAC, and I would tell them all the time the biggest mistake that the refinish technicians make are trying to go too fast, trying to speed everything up. So, and that goes the same thing with doing your color while it's in the booth. I don't have time for that right now. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get this car ready. I'm gonna do that. I'll worry about that later. Slower is faster in more cases than not.
Exactly, and it's kind of neat if you spend a lot of time in different shops, and one of the craziest things to see is the shops that do this the best look like they're doing the least. You go in there, no one's stressed, no one's running around. It almost seems like they're getting nothing done, and then you look at the end of the day, they are just super producers. So this stuff really does work. And anytime you can see this process really fully adopted, it does make a massive difference on the stress levels. We have enough stress in our daily lives anyway. We don't need to add more onto it, right? Same with that, make sure we're reviewing the color on intake. It really should be done in the blueprinting stage. There should be kind of a spray out that's been verified, it matches. Make sure that if there is any spray outs or corrections or adjustments that need to be done, we have the time to do it. We can make smart adjustments if we need to do multiple, but we can also record it. We can save the color for future use. All too often I see people take the time to make sure they get the color match, but then they don't save their work because they're in a hurry, right? Why would you go through all that effort just to throw all that results away? So it's really important.
Yep.
Right, and same as anything else, there should be a bit of a QC checklist before it goes in the paint shop, and then when it leaves there, just to make sure that everyone's following the same guidelines. Right, we know how the car's going to look when it gets brought in. We know how the car's going to look when it's leaving. So, and this is kind of to touch on some different things. All right, different refinish application methods. Right, so we've got our color work done, but what happens when I have to spray some of these colors? Right, color complexity is at an all-time high. There's more and more pigments that are getting introduced that are being used, and that's not going to change. We've really proven that colors do sell cars. I think Mazda did a really nice job of that. They came out with some really nice looking colors as a red, and you see the thing on the road everywhere. So it did make a big difference, right? We have more and more glass and color shifting pigments getting used, not even as the whole mix, just as part of the mix, so it does add a little bit of complexity to it. Very highly chromatic pigments are in a lot more usage now, It doesn't mean that they're hard to spray or difficult to do. It's just we need to make sure that we know how to use these things, right? We're seeing more leafing aluminums and stuff like that. And with this, what do I do in the shop on a day-to-day basis that I'm going to train myself for, right? So what we commonly do is if there's colors that you haven't seen, you can get with your local rep or your distributor, and if you have some time, take some scrap panels, you can get some paint, and you can go ahead and simulate a repair on these things so you're aware of them. It's a good practice to do before you ever do one. Don't learn and practice on a color on a live car, right? Just take the time to make sure you're educated and do it. And once you do it once or twice, you don't really lose that skill, right? So it's these little things we can do in our bit of free time when we're a little bit down to make ourselves a better technician for when we do get busier or when we do see when these colors come in. Kind of another part to touch on is how do we get trained, right? So there's many different methods, right? We talked about you can get someone to come into your shop locally and spend some time with you. There's all kinds of resources online between your OEM manufacturers, iCar, your paint manufacturers. There's so many different resources there, and everyone offers something online. I can tell you it's not utilized nearly as much as it should be. I know, talked to people at iCar, I've talked to people at the OEMs, I've seen what people do there, and the amount of people that kind of log on to try and start training but never finish it is rather high. Yeah. There's a lot of different certification programs out there as well. We always welcome everyone to our training facilities. I know 3M has them, iCar has them. There's so many different resources out there now more than ever. And the fact that we don't utilize them as much as we should is kind of a shame.
Well, and I think a lot of people are really, and I shouldn't say a lot of people, some people are a little bit turned off with some of the online training in their mind until they really take it and understand and they try. Everybody has a tendency to think that I only learn hands-on. That's not the case. You wouldn't give somebody fresh out of school that's never painted a car say, here's a paint gun, here's some paint, go learn. You don't do that. So you're right. These online sources need to be utilized, but they also don't need to just be clicking through it.
Correct.
And that's one of the problems is you click through, let's see if I can take the test. And because people aren't taking it serious. So if you're signing up for an online course, and if you really pay attention to it and study it like you would if you were out doing, a PowerPoint, going into hands-on, I think you'll get so much more out of it than some people want to believe.
Fully agree, and I think a good example of that is that when it's something that's assigned to us as a task that we have to do, we just try and get through it. But then say you're at your house and you have a project or you want to learn how to do something or something breaks and your dishwasher breaks and you want to learn how to fix it. The first thing people do will go online to YouTube and they'll watch a video on how to do it, and they pay so much attention to it because it makes a difference at that time and moment. So, it's funny how that works. And I am a very hands-on person, so I learn better doing things hands-on, but I can tell you there's so many resources online, and they are very valuable. It will never replace hands-on training, but it is an extremely good addition to it. And we want to make sure people utilize that because it's important.
Yeah, you need a combination of different style training, always.
Yeah. So kind of our call to action is, evaluate the training hours that's going on in your current shop and be honest with it. What are you currently offering? What are people doing? And what should be the target for your shop? And everyone can set different ones. And right now, if you're doing 10 hours, it doesn't have to be I need 80 hours this year. It's, okay, I'm doing 10 hours. What happens if we went to 30, right? It could be incremental. I mean, that's not that many hours to really do over the course of a year. Set training goals and make sure we're putting a date to them as well. Don't just say, yeah, I want you to do this. Let's make sure we set a plan in place to do it, and we monitor, are we achieving our goals to do that? Invest in hands-on training. It's such a valuable resource, and it's a very little expense for a lot of people. Make sure you go away, and I think it's invaluable even hands-on training at a training facility because part of it is I'm out of the shop environment. I don't have production I'm dealing with, so I got my full attention on what the task at hand is. So it's very valuable there. And also track, the ROI on your investment. Are processes getting better? Do we have less rework? Are colors getting done quicker? So there's always ways to track it and see, is this paying off? Do we need to pivot? What would make the most difference? So that's it.
Well, I want to thank you, Ryan, for being part of our show. And as always, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.